Hola, dudes. For those of you who don't know, I write a weekly column for barchart.com that tends to focus a lot on the cash grain fundamentals or cash grain developments or whatever major story may be developing each week that I'm paying attention to. This week, those of you may be interested, and maybe I shouldn't push it out too awful much, but what the hell, I wrote it. I need to stand by it, huh? This week I wrote an article titled Why I Am Bullish Corn, and it is not clickbait. So, for those of you who want to take a look at the reasons that I am bullish corn going forward, feel free to head on over to barchart.com. You can go ahead and click up top. There'll be a news section. You can find my name, it's right there. You should be able to find it. Like I said, it is titled Why I Am Bullish Corn. In the article, I discuss just basically what we're seeing. First, I start with the conversation about old crop carry out, old crop demand. A lot of folks over the summer, when prices really got bearish, like to point out this story of lacking demand. And that was really astounding to me and really frustrating, honestly. I listen to a lot of market analysis, like folks watch sports, and I will yell at the TV or the article that I read. Anyway, a lot of folks had talked about this lacking corn demand, and what was most amazing to me about that is that corn demand quietly increased by over a half a billion bushels throughout this old crop cycle. So, like basically, from last September to this September, the USDA increased old crop corn usage by 530 million bushels and cut carryout by 409 million. I mean, that's a pretty phenomenal thing to have happen with everyone being like, well, demand sucks. And so, yeah, sorry, that's my frustration. Anyway, so I talk a little bit about that in just kind of the backdrop of coming into a new crop year, carrying with us a 12% stocks to use ratio, which is below, the last 24-year average that we have seen. Secondly, I talk about just what we're seeing from a global production standpoint and how the USDA currently is really lagging when it comes to some of these production estimates. Part of me wonders if it's not just, them waiting for actual yield results or what the deal is. I mean, we obviously have a really wide stretch between Brazil and the USDA, 12 million metric tons, like a half a billion bushels, that I'm not sure ever really gets reconciled, but it is a little problematic. In addition, you're looking at probably making adjustments to Argentina and Ukraine's crop. You've got some logistical issues that we're seeing coming out of Ukraine. In addition, we have some pretty extensive toxin problems. And I think I've mentioned that before, but like Ukraine, Eastern Europe, they're dealing with aflatoxin, which aflatoxin is the devil. And then you've got, Central Europe, like Poland, who was a bright spot for a while, currently dealing with flooding. And so you take a look at that. You take into consideration right now that a lot of the places that should be planting first crop corn across much of Brazil, southern Brazil especially, across Brazil in general. Southern Brazil, it's too wet. Northern Brazil, it's way too dry. So you're going to see a reduction in acreage there. And if we see any type of delay to soybean planting with the way corn economics are currently, you're not going to see a large amount of safrinha acres planted. And so one of the things that I point out in the article is that we saw this increase in demand by about a half a billion bushels here over the old crop year, during a time that we were relatively awash in corn. Remember, Brazil was carrying forward a record crop that it had harvested last June. Argentina obviously was problematic. Their production was down pretty significantly, 600 million bushels. So there was a bit of a cut there that you could say that equals out this year. But we did have a massive Ukrainian crop too that was heavily subsidized and needed to move, among other things. In addition, I point out, what we're looking at from a global blending rate and an increase in domestic demand around the world. I mean, if you look at the increase in domestic demand that we're seeing in Brazil, across Europe, in India, where they're looking to increase their ethanol blend rate to 20%. A lot of folks want to say that U.S. demand is plateaued, but if you look at ethanol exports and our ability to kind of reach beyond the blend wall, I can't say that is true either. I'm not going to speak on feed margins at this time because I'm uneducated, but I can't imagine that they are poor, or at the very least, I can't imagine we see a sharp downturn in mouths to feed, at this point, just based on what I'm hearing and based on history in general. Overall, I think, and I've been in this mindset for a while, August was a bloodbath, mostly because we knew we had a billion bushel of farmer-owned bushels that we were lugging forward that were going to be forced to make a disgusting decision. It was really gross at the end of the month, obviously. But I think the market structure itself is part of the reason that you've seen funds liquidate this as much of their short position as what we've had. The market structure itself is changing, and I hope that folks can recognize that the cash market itself is probably going to be a lot tighter than what we've seen over the last year, just as low prices kind of are working to cure low prices to stimulate demand. So just my thoughts. I am open to people coming at me with counter arguments, obviously, as long as they are embedded or it comes from a place of fact with support. If you just want to come at me with your gut feel or your opinion that's maybe based on some antiquated news, that's fine. But I am always looking for ways that I am wrong. So anyway, this is super long, but go check it out, barchart.com. You can read it and come back to me, I guess, or don't. Either way, have a good one.